Michael. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Design Thinking Workshop. I'd like to introduce you to Michael Testani and Anita Chabla. Anita, did you want to take it away for us?
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd like to welcome our IACEE members and our non-IACEE participants. And I'd also like to thank Camille very much for all her work behind the scenes in helping us get this workshop together. She acts as our Chief Operation Officer. So thank you, Camille. Let's get started. We have a fun-filled hour packed, and so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our facilitator and our host for today. So Michael is our industry specialist. I had an opportunity to meet him at a conference and was so impressed by his knowledge on design thinking. So Michael, why don't you come up and introduce yourself?
Welcome everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here. This is going to be fun. We're going to practice some design thinking principles. First got into design thinking, just a little bit of background. I first got into design thinking a little over 10 years ago with IBM Corporation. And they had, at the time, one of the largest enterprise-wide design thinking initiatives going. And that was for strategic purposes. I mean, IBM saw that they needed to compete more aggressively, and the way to do that was through design thinking, trying to create unique experience for our users. So that got me started on my journey. Hopefully some of you are started on a journey as well. If not, this will be the start to your design thinking journey, I'm sure. All right. Thank you for having me.
Much. And I'd like to introduce Tom, my dear colleague from Engageli, who will be your host for today. Tom?
Thank you, Anita. Design thinking is something near and dear to my heart. I taught in to be here and have the opportunity to work with Michael and learn as well. So thank you all for the opportunity to facilitate and help on the Engageli side.
One of your facilitators for today. My name's Anita. I work at Engageli in the Partner Success and Strategy, and my background is really in large enterprise system architecture and implementation. I've worked for many years in higher education, and I'm also an IACEE board member, so really very honored to have Michael and Tom today presenting this design workshop for you. So without further ado, let's get into the workshop, and welcome to IACEE workshop on design thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you, Nita and Tom, and thank you everyone for attending. As I said, I'm excited about this session. It's an opportunity to apply design thinking in a setting where it historically has not been applied a lot, in a virtual setting. But if there's one positive outcome that came out of the pandemic, that was we're able to do things that we never thought we could do in a virtual setting. So yeah, I'm confident we're going to have a great outcome today for three reasons. One, our great facilitators, co-facilitators, Tom and Anita, and we're on a great platform, Engageli, very powerful. I'm excited to see what we're going to do with it today, or what we're all going to do with it today. So I think that's going to be really cool. And the third and main reason I'm confident about our successful outcomes is you all, right? One of the magic behind design thinking is it leverages thought diverse teams. And I believe we've got a thought diverse team here, and I'm confident that we're going to be successful. So for those who aren't familiar with design thinking, it's an innovative and human-centric approach to problem solving that brings new breakthrough ideas through thought diverse teams, much like the teams here. And it's great at solving complex problems, right? Particularly problems where, people are involved, right? I think that's one of the things that makes those problems complex, right? Is that human element. So I'm excited to be, working with you all today on moving you through, I'll say, a bit of the design thinking process. This is just going to be a taste of it. Normally we run a full day workshop for something like this. But that being said, I think this is going to be really successful. We're going to go through the process that's illustrated here along the bottom, right, where it kind of starts with a problem we're trying to solve. And then we have this great mind share, right, amongst our teams as to how we might address that problem. And then as next steps, we'll look at prototyping, testing, and refining those ideas. So those will be things that, we'll do offline through the leadership team, but we'll certainly keep everyone here involved with that process as we navigate through it. All right, so moving to the next slide. Yeah, so here's the agenda. The first thing we want to do is, hear from you all, right? We want to get you all connected, get you all teaming. So we'll have you get together in table teams, introduce yourselves. And then what we really want to hear is, what are you looking to get out of this session? We mentioned design thinking being a very human-centric approach, and it's great at addressing the needs of end users. We want to understand what your needs are so we can help best meet those as we navigate through the session. And then we'll get into our primary focus of this particular workshop, which is focusing on the success of this organization. Right, we'll start with a focus on the vision statement. That's kind of our guiding star. We'd love your input on that, and we'd love your ideas about how we might move that forward. So that's kind of the approach we'll take. We've got some time-bound breakout sessions, which is a design thinking practice. And the reason we time-bound is, we don't limit our ideas that way. We're our own worst critics when it comes to ideation. So when we time-bound things like this, we don't get an opportunity to filter our ideas. So that's essentially what we're going to cover today. We're going to navigate through that. So to get things started, Tom's going to take us through an activity.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Michael. So for those of you who haven't experienced the Engageli platform, I'll just do a very brief overview and kind of show you some of the areas where you'll be interacting with your peers and colleagues here in the conversation. So Engageli has a little bit different format than some of the platforms you may be familiar with. So you can always interact with others in the chat, which is just underneath where you see me located in the upper right corner. So if you don't mind clicking on the chat right now, a window will pop up at the bottom of that area, and you can send a message to everyone just to see how that works. If you don't mind placing your name, the institution that you work at, and the roles or the hats that you wear there for your organization, and then just hit that little arrow to send it out so that we can kind of start to see where everyone's coming from, so to speak, in terms of the area, curricular-wise, or institution, or we do have some members who are not IACEE joining the conversation today, which is great because we'll have an opportunity to get some input. And these problems and things that we'll be discussing aren't necessarily only related to IACEE. So I think we're going to have a really good wealth of knowledge coming in from people from all of the different directions that we're joining from this morning. So I'll let that kind of filter in for a minute, and you can see how the chat functions here. It is a great stream of consciousness here in the conversation, and we'll talk a little bit more about functionality as folks are finishing up. At any time, you can raise your hand and come up if Michael's asking for input. That is the center button on the bottom bar, as Scott just demonstrated, and that'll bring you up if Michael's asking for input or conversation from folks. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll notice we're in table mode. That means you can actually open mic and speak to the others at your table at any time, and it won't be heard by everyone in the room. It is a case where you can kind of socialize what you're thinking about without interrupting the larger conversation as well. So great. Thank you for sharing, everyone. I appreciate that. We'll kind of kick off from here with a little bit of an interactive component. Would also be keen to kind of quite literally see where everyone's coming from. So if you don't mind entering in the little chat window that you see there on the main screen, you can type in a one word or a few characters to tell everyone where you're coming from, and then hit the checkbox, and I'll turn the results outward so you can see that that flow of where everybody's coming to the conversation from. So we do have a very, very far afield group here. As far as South Africa. So thank you all for joining. And I don't have the opportunity to put mine in, but I'm in Texas. So thank you for sharing that information. It looks like we've gotten pretty much most of our participants in here. So I'm actually going to save this into my notes by capturing the screen here in the moment, and I'll explain how you do that here in just a moment so you can do that as well. So I'll lock the answers and stop the poll, and we will go ahead and continue forward into the remainder of the workshop conversation. Michael, did you want to step in and explain?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, that was exciting to see the geographical diversity here. That's wonderful. I'm sure that's going to translate to thought diversity and diversity of perspective, which really sets us up for success. So this is great. Yeah, so what we'd like to do now is break you into the table teams, get you working with your small group at your own table. So the first thing we'd like to ask you to do is just, of course, introduce yourself to the other members of the team. But we'd like to hear why you registered for this workshop, and most importantly, what outcomes are you looking for? What are you looking to take away from this workshop? And Tom, Anita, and I will kind of visit the tables while you're doing this, and we'd love to hear why you're here and what you're looking to get out of it. So, Tom, you want to guide us?
Awesome. Yeah. So what I'll do, you are in table mode, so you can begin speaking to your peers at your table, and then I'll be quiet so I don't interrupt you. But I'm going to start a timer at this time, and we will roam in the room and speaking with you.
Hello, table one. Can you hear me?
My name is Bassam Hussein.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I had the chance to join a couple of the tables. And Michael, if you don't mind joining me back at the podium.
Awesome. Am I back now?
You are back at the podium. Yes, very good. I had a request from some folks at one of the tables to mention a bit about Engageli. I will continue to kind of explain some of the functionality as we continue. Thank you for those questions. We're going to go ahead and continue now. So great share outs, Michael. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I heard a lot, just to reflect a little bit on, what I heard from a couple of the tables. There's interest in learning more about design thinking, folks that are applying them now as we speak, and strong interest in Engageli and understanding the platform. So, I think both of those outcomes will be realized as a result of this session. Yeah. So let's get into today's topic.
And Michael, if I may, before you continue, in the notes section, I've shown you where chat is at. You also have a tab here called notes. If you'd like to capture what's on the screen right here in the moment, it'd be good to review or kind of look back at this while you're having a conversation with your table peers in just a moment. So if you'll click on the notes tab at the bottom center section of that, you have a little camera icon. And if you click on that, Engageli allows students or participants to grab what's on screen and kind of save it permanently for their learning or for their conversation purposes. So you can click on the notes, click on the little camera icon, and capture Michael's slide here so that you can refer back to it as you're speaking with your table peers in a moment. Thank you, Michael. Please continue.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tom. Yeah, so hopefully everyone's got a snapshot of this and it's in your notes, because we'll want this referential for you when we break back out in the table teams in just a moment. But let's just talk about vision for a minute. What is a vision statement? We'll talk about the IACEE one specifically in just a moment. But what is a vision statement? What should it do? There's two key things that I see in a vision statement, and that is that it's aspirational and inspirational, right? It should be at least those key things, right? Where it's something we aspire to, something as an organization, right? This is our North Star. This is what we want to get to. This keeps us all kind of moving in the same direction. But it is future looking, right? X years down the road, this is what we aspire to be. And it should inspire us all on this call, as well as others who read our vision statement, should inspire us to kind of get on board with us and help us achieve this vision. So that's the intent. So I won't read through this. I know you can all read it, and you've got it all now in your notes to refer to when we break out. But when we break out, I want to ask you to do a couple different things. One, review the vision statement and note what you like about it. What resonates with you from this vision statement, inspires you, motivates you, etc. What would you change? Are there things that you think aren't clear or maybe confusing, or could be improved in some way, shape, or form? And then finally, we'd like you to capture, what do you believe is standing in our way of achieving this vision? So in other words, what are inhibitors, barriers, blockers to this vision of success, right? And we'd love your input on that. And we're going to move all that information forward in this session, particularly feedback on the specifics of the vision. But in this session, we'll move forward the inhibitors, right? This will be the problems, if you will, that we're trying to solve by way of design thinking. Okay, any questions on what we're to do? We're going to break out in a moment back into our table teams and capture those three things. And Tom and Anita are going to pull up a whiteboard where ultimately we'll synthesize our information right onto the whiteboard.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So as Michael was saying, we want to frame the conversation you're having with the people at your table related to, what you might like about those statements, the vision statements, what you might change, those types of things. And I'm going to launch a whiteboard for you to be working. So as your group comes up with a few of those items, you'll be able to place those in some categories on the whiteboard. So we can kind of capture this and distill the collective mind here about these topics. If you want, you might also capture this this information and into your notes so that you can refer back to it. It's what you like, what you want to change, and inhibitors that you see. So I'll go ahead and launch that whiteboard now. And I'm going to set a timer for 7 minutes for you to work with your peers at your table. And then we'll come back and kind of take a look at what the collective thoughts were.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
And for your benefit, in the upper left-hand corner on the whiteboard are the tools. So one person from each group might be the stenographer. You might click on the upper left corner. You can select second from the bottom as the add note, and that's like a little sticky note. So if you have some thoughts, that's probably the easiest way to add that to the board.
All right. Thank you, Tom.
We do have some folks who didn't see the mission statement, so you can always toggle back to that. Anita has shared the link to it in the chat, or you can use the My View to go back and toggle back and forth between the whiteboard and the PDF share, so you can see that slide. Okay, great share out on the board, everyone. So our timer has gone off. So we'll jump back in here in just a moment. It looks like we've got several great things to talk about here as we continue and begin our ideation phase. So Michael, did you want to come up to the podium for just a moment? I'll actually draw everyone's attention briefly back to the share of the slides. So again, thank you for referring back to the vision and giving your input onto the whiteboard here. What we will do now is I'm going to change the way that I'm sharing, and I'm going to actually share the list of those. Anita's been kind of distilling those into our slides themselves. So I'm going to share those outwardly here by sharing a screen of the other slides that we have here. So it appears that we have a number of things that we can talk about as we move the conversation further. I am going to go ahead and share screen with the tab for this portion, and I'll draw your attention to those. So Michael, take it away, please.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and thank you for the great input from all of the table teams. This was really cool to see it come together. And I think there was, they were kind of split in terms of the feedback we're getting. A lot of focus on the vision and what could make that better, and that's great. And like I had mentioned to our table team, the leadership team will take that very valuable input and move that forward. I think there's a lot of great commentary there that can be used to make that vision statement even better, right? Even more inspirational and aspirational. And what we want to do next is take those top inhibitors that Tom and Anita have summarized here and move those forward. And now we want to ideate on these. So, we're kind of going through the first phase of design thinking, which is focusing on the problem, right? There's many issues. So relative to the vision and our ability to achieve that vision, what's stopping us, right? Those are kind of our problems. We've distilled those down to top problems. So we've kind of diverged and converged to our top problems that are listed here. And what we thought we would do is move each of these inhibitors to a table team, right? Where each inhibitor would now ideate around, well, what can we do about these? What can we do as specific as we can, right? About clarifying the vision or financial. And I believe we have 4 table teams, Tom. So maybe it makes sense, since the vision is kind of being handled by the input, maybe that one we table, no pun intended.
That one again, which one did you want to table?
The vision, I'm thinking, can be handled offline, and so maybe the financial, time commitment, distance barriers, lack of focus can be the table team themes. That's my recommendation.
Very good. I have renamed those tables as we're speaking here. So what you will see now is the table that you're at has been renamed based on one of these topics. So if you would like to speak about a particular topic, you could change tables, or you can just use the ones that you've been assigned at your table. If you'd like to change tables, in the lower left-hand portion of the bottom bar is a My View tab. You can click on that, and then you can click on Tables. And then if you hover over the topic of your choice, if it's not already full, you could join and take part in that conversation. So I'll set a 10-minute timer, I believe is what we were going to do here, right? Michael?
Yes, about 10 minutes. And if we could advance to the next slide, we'll just set up the ideation a little bit.
Perfect.
Tips and suggestions.
Yeah, so I'm going to start a timer for 10 minutes so that you can solve some of these problems or come up with solutions for them at each of your table groups based on the name of your table. We'll be roaming and helping you understand which one you're at and what you're talking about. And I'll draw everyone's attention back to the ideation portion here. Let's advance to here. So in this ideation phase, Michael, please, did you want to explain what they want to take away from this?
Yes, thank you, by all means. And we'll be trapping our ideas on the shared doc, correct? We've got the shared doc out there. So each team will have our own section of the doc to put our ideas in. So, we're moving into the second diamond, right, of design thinking. The first diamond was to synthesize our insights around, let's say, barriers to success, our inhibitors. We've done that. Now we want to diverge and converge again, right? Brainstorm, ideate around what can we do to overcome, in this case, our particular inhibitor that our table team has been assigned. And design thinking principle number one is go for quantity over quality, right? We're brainstorming, we're using divergent thinking. Let's diverge as far as we can within the time we have, and then we'll converge, right? Then we'll organize, prioritize, and select. But I would recommend that approach. Excuse me, go for quantity. And we always start this ideation with a how might we statement, right? And our how might we statement here is how might we overcome our particular inhibitor to realize our vision of success, right? For the betterment of our community, right? So that's kind of the focus question we have going into ideation. So with that, I don't want to take up any more time. Let's move into ideation, and we'll roam around and answer questions as needed. But before we break, any questions? Any questions from anyone as to what we're to do? All right, let's break back out.
And I've shared a document with each table, so that should be in view at your table now. So please do add your ideation points to those documents so we can all take that away with us today.
All right, thank you, Tom.
And Michael, it looks like some great conversations are going on. Do we want another minute? If you give me thumbs up, another minute at your tables there we go. Okay, very good. I'll add another minute.
That sounds good, Camille. Let's report that out. All right. Tom, are we back together again?
We are back together, and I've directed everyone's attention back to your ideation slide, Michael, for the kind of the wrap-up conversation here.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tom. And yeah, thanks to everyone for the conversation. And I gathered on our table team and at least one others, right? Just getting clarity around the problem was the first step. And that took a bit of time. So yeah, thanks for giving us an extra minute here to kind of distill our ideas and come away with a couple priorities. I know that the financial table team did, and we'll report that out. Then hopefully we can hear from all teams. So as we move to the next slide, what we'll do is ask each table team, if you haven't already, pick a spokesperson. And if you could just call out your top one or two ideas. We'll hear ideas from everyone, right, across all tables, which will be kind of neat to get that shared perspective. And then we'll kind of discuss next steps, how we're going to move all this information forward.
And if your table representative will just raise their hand, there's a button in the center of your bottom bar that has a hand on it. One representative from each table can come up and come to the podium and share out, please. Christelle.
That's my team. Okay, so I was nominated, and the top 3 priorities that we identified was that it felt like a bunch of things were listed that was already done. It's more past tense than future, what they want to achieve in the future. And then our second priority was that they want to align it to a core vision statement and a future trajectory. Yeah, you see, guys, I told you, stage fright, as opposed to the accomplishments. So our third priority, as we continued with the discussion, it just got much better, was Javon stated that write a vision statement based on the audience we are trying to serve. So that includes prospective members and not people that are just new, or people that are already part of the company or the team or whatever. And then the last one that Scott mentioned that I just totally agree with was, I know we should only mention 3, but that it's too good to not share. So is the last sentence of the paragraph, that's actually just the vision statement. We said that we should just start the whole vision statement with that last sentence.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that report out. And why don't we hear from the next table? I'm just going to nominate Camille from table 1. Camille, if you don't mind being our spokesperson, you can raise your hand. I think Tom.
I think actually, Michael.
Oh, Mike's there.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, Mike's there, and Aaron after, and then we need somebody from the distance table.
Happy to represent the financial table. So the first thing we did was we needed to clarify, what is the financial inhibitor? Are we talking about an inhibitor that affects the membership from joining the organization, or are we talking about it from the organization's point of view? What are some of the barriers that the organization is facing in terms of its ability to accomplish its goals? So we focus on the side of the organization, and what does the organization need to do to try to overcome these financial inhibitors? And so we came up with 3 priorities. One was to come up with some partnerships, try to partner with other organizations that may be affiliated with its mission, or find industry leaders who would like to participate and either sponsor events or share the cost in promoting and putting on some of the events that it wants to offer. The second thing we talked about was looking at generating some revenue through webinars, maybe by putting on some low-cost events such as webinars. They could attract a larger audience, generate some more membership, or perhaps generate some revenue maybe by groups that want to be a part of those webinars. And then the third one was looking at how to do things locally through local chapters or regional events that are lower cost in terms of putting those events together, but could generate some revenue that would flow up to the organization.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Mike. And thanks for sharing the different perspectives too, right? That we chatted through relative to the financial perspective. So that was excellent. All right, is Erin up next?
We were table 3, which was the time commitment. So thinking about this one, we thought, I'll just share 2 of the priorities, that we need to, first of all, clarify our priorities so that we are allocating our time effectively, both those that are producing content or opportunities and those attending, so that, in an effort to achieve the vision, so allocating the use of time effectively. And then talking about our resources to be able to provide a variety of opportunities that work with the user's time limitations or location, all of that. So not just their professional time limitations, but geographically too, where they are and how much they can participate. And giving multiple opportunities to do that would help them to be able to prioritize.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and we have somebody from
the time zone differences. Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you, Erin. I apologize for interrupting, Michael. Can we have somebody from the distance table 2, to come share? That's the raise hand button in the bottom center of your Engageli bar at the bottom. And that's your table, Dr. Jordan. Did we have somebody from table 2 already join? I didn't see, I may have missed.
No, I don't think so. I don't think we heard from table 2 yet, have we?
Not yet. Any volunteers from table 2?
Well, I can try to share what we discussed. So we came up with 3 ideas. Fortunately, I don't know how to go back to the document on which we worked. What is the collaborative docs? Okay, I've got it. So it took us some time for us to clarify what it meant to have this distance barrier. And we came up with 3 main ideas. First one was to maybe organize, to get organized with in Snowflake's model with local chapters that could help people getting together and being less impacted by the distance. The second one was linked to the financial side and cost of participation, and to see how individual versus employee can get support from organization, or what can we do to get more support when willing to attend an event in terms of expenses. And the last one was about virtual meetings, taking into account the time zones. One of my colleagues mentioned a CEO or a coach that never reset his watch. So this time zone issue, and taking this into account would be also an interesting thing. Please, I don't know if anyone from my table want to add anything. Or...
Yeah, or anyone from any table want to add or weigh in on anything on table 2, or any comments about anything you've heard in terms of the report out? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This is I think this is really cool, right? I mean, we spent less than an hour and got a dozen ideas at least about, how we can advance the vision, right, of the IACEE. So I think that's really neat. And this is just a really small taste of design thinking, right, as I'm sure you can appreciate. But I think it gives you a good sense too as to what can be done in a virtual environment, right, using a system like Engageli. Right, because these practices were originally intended for face-to-face groups, Post-its and Sharpies and whiteboards and flip charts, right? And now we're doing it in a virtual environment, which I get jazzed about. So, and I'm mostly jazzed by the great ideas that you all come up with. I'm always impressed when I come to the end of one of these things and say, wow, they really came up with some good ideas in a relatively short period of time. So thank you all for that.
Michael, can I make a comment here? I was very interested in one thing in the share out is that, we tend to think of things in one way as we think about it, but then we get the perspectives from different lenses, which was really eye-opening for me in these table discussions.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Anita. And it's that diverse perspective. I think that's one of the secret sauce, if you will, of design thinking. Right, it's just getting a different point of view can open up a part of your mind and way of thinking that just hadn't been looked at before, and I think it's really cool when that happens. Right. So in terms of moving the ideas forward, what the leadership team wants to do is now take your inputs and synthesize that even more and decide, okay, how can the IACEE advance these ideas? So that's going to be happening offline with the leadership team, and that will be reported out as well. Right? So there'll be newsletters that come out. There'll be communication directly with the folks that have attended this workshop. Probably, I'm guessing, but probably solicitation down the road of of members that participated in this to maybe help drive ideas forward. Possibly, right? Those types of next steps are what we're envisioning. So any questions or comments from the group? Questions, comments, suggestions?
I'll just compliment the group that organized and choreographed this event. Having done some of these myself, I know how much preparation you must have put into this. So my thanks to you for putting it on.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, so kudos to Tom and Anita.
I have a question though. Is this like an actual company's thing happening? Or is this just an exercise?
Well, this is live data that you've all provided the IACEE, which will be moved forward. Right?
Okay.
Yes.
Did not expect that. That's totally cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Christelle. Thank you, Mike. And did you want me to share those resources, Michael, as well as we?
Yeah, please. Yeah, folks might be interested. Awesome. And for those who, where this is maybe your first step on your design thinking journey, here's some other resources you can check out. These are thought leaders in the area of design thinking and some free resources, more importantly. So,
and these will be made available. Anita has explained that she's going to be sending these out to everyone, and the links to all of the materials. So if you want to refer back to them, they will be there.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, if you took notes and you want to save them, go to the Notes tab right underneath him, and then there's a downward pointing arrow at the bottom of that, and you can download your notes to a Word document.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And as we wrap up, we did want to get some feedback from you, if you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts about the experience here. So I will activate a poll. Engageli has an integrated poll system that's very easy to create active content. So if you don't mind sharing, this isn't anonymous. I won't share the any of the respondents' information, but please do click in and on one of the A, B, C, D, or E choices there and give us some feedback about your thoughts about the workshop. It is anonymous. We will not know who answered what on this. And we appreciate your feedback very, very much. So thank you for that. And then I know you had one more thing you wanted to talk about, Michael. So if you have finished with your answers, I'll lock that. Take a capture of that information just for our benefit, just for your benefit. Your peers thought it was very, very positive, so we appreciate that. Thank you for your time, and I'll wrap up with that last slide on Q&A, Michael.
Yeah, so thank you, Tom, and again, thank you, Anita. I think your co-facilitation and navigating through Engageli was key to, I think, getting the outcomes we got. And I feel good about it. I hope the participants do as well. I just think it's really neat in a short period of time what we can walk away with, right? We've all invested, and I use the term invested intentionally. We've all invested an hour of our valuable time, but I think there'll be a return on that investment, because I think the ideas that came out of this are really, really valuable, right? And yeah, I'm confident they'll be moved forward.
Yeah, and so if you do have any questions about the design thinking approach for Michael, again, please raise your hand. That's the center bottom button on the bar here in Engageli. Pop up, ask a question, comment. We'd be very keen to have any information that you took away from the conversation today.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, by all means. And as I said, you got a little taste of design thinking. We tried to hit on a lot of the key principles. Right, we time boxed some sessions for good reason, right? And you've got to practice, going wide and going narrow around problems, going wide and going narrow around solutions. What questions do you have?
Michael, can you take us through an example, like an example in your experience, maybe at a corporation, of how you use design thinking for a challenging problem and what was the outcome? Whether it's sort of a case study, so we can sort of apply what you just walked us through and just understand that from the field perspective.
Okay. Yeah, there's numerous to come to mind, but for whatever reason, the one that's springing to mind was a session I was running when I was at IBM, and it was with administrative assistants who were supporting executives, and they were had some frustrations with their role. So we ran, it was probably at least a one-day design thinking workshop. This was a few years back. But one of the things we did was identify personas. That's something we didn't get an opportunity to do in this session, but certainly, something I would encourage you to do, or be happy to, coach you on going forward. But in that particular session, we identified, what are the key personas involved with this particular problem? Of course, there was the executive, there was administrative assistants, but there were also other key stakeholders that both the executive and the admins were serving. And we had the admins all in one room, and we kind of did a four corners exercise where each corner had a different persona. And it was really eye-opening in that we saw that even though they're different personas, they all had similar problems that we ended up trying to solve. And I think it was, when the team got that perspective that, we think we're all very different. We think we all have very different problems. It turns out that our problems were very common and we had overlap. And, as a result of that, we were able to actually come up with some ideas of, right, how the executive in this case could work a little more constructively with their support team to get better outcomes for everyone. So That's one example that for whatever reason sprang to my mind. I mean, we're using this a lot at our design center to, address all sorts of problems, design new products, apps, so hardware, software. It's got a lot of different applications. That's what I like about it. I think you've got a good process and methodology, right? And this is not mine, right? So I'm not laying claim to anything. But when it's portable and scalable, you're onto something. And that's what we're seeing with design thinking. Very portable, very scalable. Tom mentioned using it to, K through 12. It's starting to get adopted in higher ed to try to get better learner outcomes. And as I said, I've seen it in IBM and just about every functional area within the corporation.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And I really enjoyed when students, applied design thinking. We had students that I worked with who were looking at community problems and coming up with solutions, partnering with industry, finding ways to, address the local government, the city or the state to solve issues in their community. So it really is a powerful way to go at a problem and, come up with solutions with that collective mind. So I think it's just an amazing way, especially when you have the diversity of thought that we had here today. So we really appreciate you joining. Any last questions for Michael? Just raise hand and come up to the podium if you don't mind. Or actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put us in audio mode for room mode. So you'll be coming into room mode, so you can just speak from the gallery if you wish. So we are in room mode now. So all you have to do is unmute, and you can ask a question from your seat at a table.
Did you list the resources on the screen?
Thank you. Yeah, the resources that we were showing previously, I'll go back in time to those here in the slide presentation. Those will be shared with you here via email. Anita has explained she'll be reaching out to all of the participants and sharing all the resources that we're seeing.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, and these are premier entities in design thinking. The D School, the design school at Stanford, right? One of the thought leaders there in higher ed and beyond. IDEO, which is a premier design consultancy. Their founder has actually co-founded the D School at Stanford as well. So David Kelly, if you want to Google him, you'll find a lot of good information there. And then, where my journey started was IBM. And they make a lot of their assets available as well on design thinking. They've got playbooks and field books that, will take you through the different practices and pretty easy to read and, helps you apply them.
So I have a question. I just want to.
Oh. Go ahead, Testani.
Are you a design thinking consultant, or what is your position?
Yeah, I'm happy. I have a position here at the university, but I'm happy to help any way I can. And this isn't about self-promotion. I do have a consulting company, but as I say, so I'm happy to help any way I can. So if you want to connect offline, yeah, by all means.
It's because I enjoy the socialness of design thinking, the non-judgmental space where you just can throw around ideas, and that's not something that I experience a lot in higher ed. It's a bit more uptight and factual, and you have to know stuff, no mistakes, stuff like that. So just a totally unrelated question, is there a career path one can venture into? Because I think I would enjoy being a design thinking consultant. Or
Yeah,
is there something like that?
And the nice thing about design thinking is there are a lot of assets out there where you can, get yourself trained, and they'll have, different varieties of completion certificates and that type of thing. So yeah, if you go down some of those resource paths that I listed, you'll find pathways to that. So you should definitely explore that. And I kind of hear you on the culture of, let's say, higher ed, where free-flowing ideas aren't always necessarily encouraged, right? And back in my history at IBM, where we worked around geographies around the world, there's certain cultures around the world that are very hierarchical as well, and they love design thinking because everybody was heard. So yeah, I really appreciated that about the process and being able to work with other cultures, and and just how people would embrace the methodologies. It's really uplifting to see.
Awesome. And Michael, we had a comment. Hank, would you mind sharing a resource? Oh, there we go. Thank you. In the chat stream, if you're looking at the chat, Dr. Jordan had shared about an Ishikawa diagram. So he has now shared a link to a resource related to that. Did you want to mention that, Dr. Jordan, and discuss how you use it, perhaps?
Well, thank you. Really enjoyed the session. So I like using the fishbone or Ishikawa diagram. So we take the brainstorming and then take like you had those 4 categories of distance and finance, so on. And then in the fishbone, instead of using the common 5 M's, materials, machines, manpower, and so on, use your 4 areas and put them in there. It just creates a great visual of using the fishbone. And there are tools out there that you could actually have people fill in like we did on that collaborative document. It's just a great way to illustrate things. And I find it really helpful in my teaching. So when you have an Ishikawa diagram, at the end, it's the effect. And one of the questions I ask students is, why do students get poor grades? And then we brainstorm all these ideas and reason behind that. And we come up with this fishbone diagram that helps students see, there's so much that's in my control about my own grades, right? So thank you, Tom, for letting me share that.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan.
Yeah.
And we have about 2 minutes left. Please, any last questions? If you want to make contacts with folks, you can put contact in a chat message to them directly or in the everyone chat. I know, Anita, did you want to wrap us up in terms of your touch points after the session?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Michael, so much for a great workshop. I also wanted to thank my colleagues, Camille and Tyler, who are here also, who did a lot behind the workshop and helped us with this. There's one comment that Christelle made that had me thinking about design thinking about, Michael, you said everybody has a voice at the table, and the ownership aspect and the motivation that's driven just through that very simple principle and the emerging innovation that can come through that. So it's something I had never really articulated, but I'd seen. So I really appreciate those comments. So for last steps, I will just say I will follow up on email with contact information for Michael, as well as the resources, the recording as well. And again, if you have comments, if you'd like to see another type of workshop, please email us. We'd be happy to take suggestions. As part of IACE, we're going to continue with different types of workshops to stimulate thinking around different topics and align that really with the mission of the organization. Tom, Michael, thank you both so much again. And you're welcome to stay, but we can end the recording, Tom.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll go ahead and end the recording, and you're welcome to stay if you have any questions you'd like to ask after the fact.